Well, hello and welcome. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Krista Powers of Potera. My business focuses on coaching your power within. And last month, at the start of 2021, I was delighted to be invited to be a contributing author for The Hip Senior. And in the month of February, the month known for love, we are focusing an article on relationships and online dating and love in the second half of life. And so this month, we wanted to highlight an amazing couple who actually have gone through this process. So I am delighted to be joined by Allison Zen Edwards and Rick Edwards today. Thank you for your time from differing communities. We're both here staying in Kentucky, Northern Kentucky, in our own homes. And we will take some time and kind of unwrap the story of your relationship a bit. But can you just right off the bat tell us how long ago you met and how that happened?
Uh, the way we originally met, we met through Match. And it was kind of interesting because I had been on Match and my time was expiring. And I had kept my uh, area limited to very close to home, about 15 miles radius, thinking I wanted to stay in this area. And it had not had very good success. So as my time was expiring, I decided on a Saturday morning I was going to expand my area into a larger area that would be encompass more of where I worked. And so that took me into area that got about 35 miles from my home at that point. So I expanded my area that morning, and immediately when I expanded my area, the first thing that popped up, the first picture was Allison. And for her to tell her side of the story, I'll tell it for her a little bit. But she had just joined Match that morning.
Yeah.
So, it's we just thought it was just kind of like something meant to be a little bit that I expanded my match and then she joined at the same time. And what brought us together at first was that we both lost our spouses to dementia or Alzheimer's. And I originally wrote a note out to Allison just as support, just knowing how difficult it is to just recently lost a spouse and to be back in the dating game. And a lot of people saying, well, it's too soon because they don't realize what you've gone through of years of someone being ill and saying goodbye. And so just trying to be supportive. And that supportive conversation led to us wanting to meet each other and get to know each other a little bit more. And so we kind of met a week later after lots of emails and we went from there. So,
I
anything
love
to add to
that.
that, or?
I love seeing your face perk up also when you said the first picture that popped us was Allison's.
Well, that really was pretty incredible, just the timing of that. So we always say sort of the universe opened up for us on June 3rd, 2017.
Yeah. We got married a year later
Wow.
to the same date.
Yeah.
Wow.
Figure that's a lucky day. So
Yes, yes. So you mentioned that both of you are widowed and you both were active caregivers and the primary caregivers for your partner, your spouse. What was it that brought you to the point to say, I'm going to put up a profile on a dating app?
oh boy. Well, I had actually lost my husband Doug in January of 2017, and um, for the last 3 years that he was alive, and he was sick for 10 years, but the last 3 years that he was alive, he did not know who I was. We still maintained a incredibly magical relationship, but um, I I was without the person that I knew for all those years, and I I was encouraged very gently by girlfriends and my mother's friends to consider dating, and that just was not anything that I was interested in at all. And then I remember having coffee with a gentleman in April, actually somebody from a church that I belonged to, who was just checking in on me. And I just that conversation, like I hadn't had that kind of conversation in so long. It was just like, wow, I guess maybe this would be fun. But it took from April to June to get up the courage to do a profile and really put myself out there. Yeah, but
And
Sure.
so for me, I'd been online quite some time before she had been. Uh, and I went online to, uh, it's a different world. I mean, it's not like it was when we were in high school and you knew the people you were dating because you went to school with them, and probably your parents went to school with them. And then they were in college where you knew people from school. And, that's the last dating experience you'd had until all of a sudden here you are. But online seemed to be at least be an opportunity to, instead of just meeting people that were just random, to be able to go in and identify that here's people that has the same type of activities or the same type outlook on life as what I have, to be able to at least narrow the field and use that to do that with. Uh, Although I did find it very interesting in how you're able to narrow the field or not based on how well the profiles are done.
Mm.
So,
Did,
that's another story.
did someone help each of you create your profile?
It's a good question. No, um, but I decided, since this was sort of that first introduction to somebody, I wrote the profile like I would want to read somebody else's profile. Tell me. Well, I was very clear that I had just lost my husband back in January, and that I will always love him. I didn't want anybody to have false expectations of me and my emotional availability, whatever. Um, and so I was really clear about that. But then, I mean, I was just like, I'm going to just put it all out there. What kind of movies I like, what I like to do for activities, where I like to travel. I mean, I just thought, I'm just going to put it out there. And if it's a good match, great. If it's not, I'm good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought I really wanted to be very clear about who I was and what, yeah.
I think for me, after my wife passed away, my brother was very strongly suggesting that I go out and start dating again. He said, "You spent 20% of your life caring for Carol." And then my sons were very suggestive of the same thing, which really opened the door. But I just looked at other profiles and tried to establish for other profiles what seemed to look like the right thing to do, looking at others. Uh, Personally, what I felt about what I started to say a little bit ago was I look at the profile almost like it's your resume.
Mm.
This is who you are. And I think that you've got to be very fair and honest with yourself. Because the first thing you got to do is take an inventory of who you are. Okay, and then really be honest about that, and don't try to inflate that because it's going to come out in the first place. I mean, I actually met people who were showing pictures of themselves 10 years ago. And it's just that what purpose? I mean, do they think we're not going to notice that when you meet each other?
Right.
That really surprised me how often some of those kind of things happen, where people were not who they thought they were. So I would tell someone to create a profile, be honest, do an inventory of yourself, be honest with yourself, and then the next thing is try to understand what you're looking for.
Mm.
And really try to say this is what I'm looking for, and rate things even if you have to 1 to 10. 1 I'm flexible, and 10 I am not.
Mm-hmm.
And understand that. And Alice and I would have a little bit of a story to say a little bit there too. She had down she likes to hike. That was not my profile, although I've hiked before, and I enjoy being out in nature. But what we also both discussed about was that we both like to hike, but we do not like to camp. Uh,
Ah.
we still we want to hike for the day and go back to some place that's very pleasant and have a nice meal and a comfortable place to sleep. Uh, and I think that's fine, and that's but there's sometimes you look at that and you say, well, someone wants to camp also, and so you're willing to say, okay, well, I'll try camping. And if you're willing to be open to camping and say, yeah, I'm going to try that and see if I like it or not, that's one thing. But you can't say, yeah, okay, I'm going to agree to camping now because I want this relationship to work out, and then later on in the experience say, oh, I don't like camping now.
Mm-hmm.
That's not being true to yourself. I think you really have to be true to yourself as far as what you want and who you are, and always maintain those two things. And if nothing else, go back to that and say, am I being true to myself? As you write your profile and as you go through the dating experience.
I like that. So in the article, I called it creating a love vision, right? Kind of we have different visions for ourselves in life, and specifically a love vision. But I especially like what you talk about, Rick, the maybe a flexibility skill. So if you kind of think through, certainly first, who am I? and come with that and be open and candid and authentic. And then thinking about what you're looking for. I talk about the non-negotiables, but the flexibility scale, I like that even more, because yeah, maybe hiking wasn't massively your thing. And yet now I see you two exploring the world, I feel like on Facebook. And I didn't realize that, was more Allison's, thing maybe to start with. And you've created it together, it looks like.
Yeah, well, I'd done it before and enjoyed it, but it wasn't on my profile. It wasn't something she saw.
Okay.
In fact, first time we went first time we went hiking, we went to Hocking in Ohio, and I was in awe of walking through the canyon near the areas there, and I could see Allison's look on her face, just so happy. I was so much in awe and enjoying it.
Yeah,
and I was.
Yeah, it's like this has potential because this is a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it's one thing to just like go along because it's something I love, but to see him really falling in love with it, I'm like, this is awesome.
Neat.
Yeah.
Neat. So in your experience, I find that dating, it's very intellectual, it's head and heart, right? And just whole being. And I guess when we think about the heart aspect and our feelings, Rick, it sounds like maybe you went on more dates. Allison, you had that like golden ticket. Holy cow. Good for you.
I won the lottery right out of the gate.
You sure did. You did. But what, as you were out there dating and then when you met each other, what were some of those feelings?
With Allison, it was interesting because we met for breakfast. It was a late breakfast, kind of a brunch. And, initially you're thinking, okay, this gives us an hour, maybe 45 minutes, somewhere in there, to kind of talk to each other and get to know each other. I think about 3 hours later, we realized how late it was and how much we were tying up the table for that poor waitress. And realized how much time had flown by and how the conversation went from, I think a lot of your first dates, if someone has been on this at all yet, this experience, that first date is just who are you and who are they?
Mm-hmm.
And again, now you went from handing me a resume, now doing an interview, That's about what it's like. But we had done that in the process of, I think our connection of both having lost spouses to Alzheimer's gave us a real connection that we were able to talk through and realize that we both still loved who we had been with before, but we're looking for another experience and looking for someone to share the rest of our life with. But the conversation for us became so natural, so natural. I mean, it just flowed back and forth. And that's when you realize like, whoa, this isn't, I'm not trying to push it. I don't have to work at this. This is so easy. And that's when you know that there's something right about this. I think I've been on other experiences where I didn't feel like the other person was honest in presenting themselves in the first place, which made it very difficult right from the start. Or you just felt like after the initial discussion of the interview of who you are, there wasn't a whole lot of discussion topics after that. There wasn't a lot of the same interests, a lot of things you could just talk about what you've done and what you're doing that kind of built upon. So, but with both us, we truly had a connection like I'd not had before right away.
Allison, do you have any comments about what you felt?
It was certainly a matter of ease and the piece for us, as I said, that common, as Rick mentioned, the common denominator, just to be in the presence of somebody who had also lost their spouse was so comforting. Who kind of understood right where I was at and where we would be starting from. So, that was just huge. But it was just exciting. I didn't expect it to be so exciting. And I didn't expect, and we had shared from the day, so we connected on June 3rd on Match. And then every day that week, we would send each other pretty long emails and then respond to each other. So we covered a lot of territory in that week. And then when the day that we actually met for that first breakfast, I got cold feet the night before. And I sent him that note. I was just like, maybe maybe I overestimated my readiness for this. And he's like, I totally understand. We can do it another time. And I was like, oh man, he's so nice.
For me though,
I want to go ahead and meet him.
for me though,
So,
we weren't meeting to date yet.
yeah,
At
that's
that point,
true.
we were meeting to have a conversation about what it was like to lose a spouse and what it was like to be back into the dating world and be looking for someone to spend the rest of your life with. And I wanted to be supportive as much as anything. It just evolved into so much more right away. And
Well, and
so I think it goes into, if you go into it without a lot of expectations
That's a
sometimes,
key right there.
then
Yeah.
you're more open
Open.
to what comes out of it.
mhm. It also strikes me that what you just said, you want to be supportive, and you had this common thread that's a massive thread to be a caregiver. What I didn't mention is Allison, I met you years back, and it was probably in those final years of caring for Doug and also your mom, actually. And just the magnitude of love that you poured in to a person who that relationship was so different than when you started with him, right? And so now to have the courage to step out, even despite cold feet, right? And part of, I think, maybe what I'm hearing, the genius of how you entered into that first date was the willingness to not have like these massive expectations and to almost serve the other person. Maybe you wouldn't have named it that right out of the gate, but you weren't looking to see what you could get from it almost.
That's a good point. Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree with that's what was going on with both of us.
So how did you pace after that? Was it like, let's
That's
get together?
hilarious. That's a hilarious question because asked if we wanted to, did I want to get together again? And I was like, yeah. And then he's like, well, like something about next week. I'm like, next week? I gotta wait a whole week to see you. I'm trying to be cool,
Well, we did. We waited
So,
a week.
we did.
And we had another date, and then I think
Yeah.
we probably the next week we met midweek and went
Went to dinner.
went to dinner, and then I think we met again a
To
few
take a
hours
hike.
later to go hiking right there in Sharonville. So it just quickly got to the point where it's like you want to see each other more often. It was a natural thing. It wasn't pressed,
Right.
and you always felt that way. It just felt very natural.
And so between the two of you, you have 3 adult children. Rick, you already
We do.
mentioned in passing that your boys were very supportive and encouraging to you to get back out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did,
Yes,
They were.
they were. Now, the little bit of difference was with my boys because they were at an age where one was away at college already. He was a senior in college, and the other one was a freshman. Uh, so it had just graduated high school when we met. So they were still, although they were away, they were coming home on weekends and stuff. So even after we got married, they were still around a lot. Then, in fact, my oldest son, then after he graduated school, came home and lived for a year at home before he went out on his own. And actually, that was a great experience because it allowed Allison to spend more time with him and really get to know him and get to know both the boys when you're actually living together. But it is interesting trying to meld two families together when you got adult children, simply because they already have they have their own thoughts and their own beliefs, and they're going on with their life and their direction too. You kind of have to let them go to do what their life's going to be, and just try to fit it all together, because we realized quickly we couldn't let them come between us. We were going to be together, and then we had to meld them into the life.
Yeah.
So.
Allison, you said that you had girlfriends and your mom's friends were encouraging you. So you had some generations saying, go, go.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely did. And well, you mentioned my mom had Alzheimer's as well. It was so funny because she actually called Rick our boyfriend.
Oh, yes.
So we met in June, and my mom passed away in November, but Rick brought a lot of joy to her. So yeah, that was very cute.
That's
But
the ultimate approval, right? Our boyfriend.
Our boyfriend. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny.
So, but I was super blessed by Rick's boys because they were so loving and accepting of me. I think they were a little hungry for I don't want to say a mom figure. I will never take the place of their mom, but just a, I don't know, female loving energy or something. But I mean, it was really magical from the start with them. And I didn't expect that. That had not been my experience in my previous relationship. I had to work really hard at getting those relationships um, together. Doug had 4 children, and there was a lot more to navigate with that. But boy, David and Michael from the start, they just loved me. And I was so worried when it came time to make the decision about moving here. And I talked to them and said, I don't want you to feel like I am intruding into your space. And it was just really sweet. David said, you make our house feel like a home again. So,
That gives me
I mean,
goosebumps.
yeah, believe me,
Well,
give me tears.
and Allison's daughter Alex has been very supportive of both of us also, and and understands that we have our lives and we try to bring them into our lives. And she's so we try to have the before COVID, we were trying to have the kids here once a week, once every other week to have dinner and spend time together. And fortunately, the kids all get along together. And the boys both have girlfriends now, and the girlfriends like everybody, and they like Alex. And it seems as if it just works when everybody just kind of naturally comes together.
Hmm.
But Alex has been very supportive of our relationship also together.
We know that we're fortunate because that's not everybody's experience for sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Which maybe speaks also then to the point of making sure the two of you, the couple, the core couple, is strong and good. If there's going to be some bumpy roads, you need to have
Yeah.
that as you move through it.
Well, I
So
think I think as we started to get together, trying to blend both our lives together, it was pretty easy. It felt to me, although Allison struggled at first because she moved 30 miles away from where she was to a new area, so she didn't have friends here, and so she struggled at first with that change, and moved into the house that I was in already. So she had to adjust to that. For me, it was no adjustment, and had to always be aware of what that huge adjustment was to her, and try to give her as much latitude as she wanted to change things and stuff, and she did, and we both enjoyed it. And I think as we looked forward then too, one of the things that was very important to us at this stage in life, because Allison had retired to take care of her mom and take care of Doug. I had not retired yet; I was still working. Had not really thought seriously about when I would retire. Thought I might work 5 or 6 more years. And as we talked and as we then came together and got married, I realized that no, I'm not gonna work 5 or 6 years. I mean, life's too short, and it's I want to spend time with Allison now. And so we kind of set a goal out there for me to retire within a couple of years, and we could spend time together. And that was kind of one of our early discussions: is, well, how would we spend our time together the rest of our lives?
mm,
And what would retirement look like? And we both had probably worked most of our careers and looking forward to the day that we'd be able to travel, whether it be internationally or in this country or just for day hikes and do the things like that. And, I enjoy working in the yard, and so does Allison, but just to do the things we enjoy. And we had talked about those things and had a lot of commonality there too,
mm.
realizing that, we had the same goals for later in life. And that was going to be important to us both, to have those goals and be able to realize those goals together.
It's a great point. So I think I'm maybe the worst interviewer because I'm like, well, we're supposed to keep this somewhat short so people will, have their attention span. And then I'm like, I want to spend like 2 hours talking to you. And I feel like
I'm
people
sorry,
would listen.
Bella.
No, this is on me. I'm like, I want to ask you 20 more things. I'm going to ask you one more question. And if you want to add anything, also you can. So my question is this, a lot of people give their hand and give a go at dating in the second half of life, and perhaps they didn't have that first match that you had, Allison, or this final match. Do you have any words of wisdom or offerings of hope, or you've given some really great little tips already, but is there anything just in kind of closing thoughts that you would share with others in the second season of life who are looking for love and connection?
Mm.
I'll go first because my comment would be do not get frustrated and give up.
Mm,
Okay. And I'll go back to where we started and that I was on the dating app that I was on and for batch for whatever time period that was I signed up for it, and that time was expiring and I had not had any success and was frustrated by that and frustrated by some of the people that I felt like just weren't honest. Uh, and I didn't give up, So I could have just said, no, I'm not going to expand my search. This is it. I'm done. But I didn't. And I expanded search a little bit further out and I found Allison. And it's the joy of my life.
mm,
So my biggest message to anybody would be, don't think that it's not meant to be. If we're meant to share our lives with other people, and and that can be friends or that could be a future spouse. But don't if that's what you're looking for, as long as you keep doing a good inventory of yourself and what you're looking for and stay true to that, you'll find the right person. They're out there.
mm.
Just don't give up.
I love that.
And I would just say I had no intention. It was nowhere on my radar that this would have happened the way it did. And I just had to keep saying yes to this miracle of meeting Rick and this incredible relationship. But I wasn't prepared for that. I mean, I would have been fine. I'm quite certain if things had been disappointing, I would have taken a break from it. And then I would have gone back to just remain curious and open. Um, no, it's just an amazing time of life where you get more and more clear about who you are and what you want to spend your time with, and don't, it's important to be flexible, but don't compromise that.
I
I mean,
agree.
I'm so lucky to have this beautiful love in my life, but I would have been okay, I would have been totally okay because I had friends, I had activities, I had a lot of things that made me happy. This was just like the most unexpected, wonderful surprise.
Mm.
But boy, I wouldn't have wanted to just stop leaning towards. You quoted me saying, "Keep leaning towards love," because I mean, it is what we're wired to do. You know.
It is very hard to know when you're compromising what your belief and what you're looking for in your own path. Uh, and when you need to compromise to be able to find it, because maybe you're being too stringent on what you're looking for. Uh, and then also, because I found myself in some of those situations where I felt like I'm compromising too much. But it's
Mm.
with what you said earlier. You have to go back and look at what you're looking for and say, is this true to what I was trying to what I set out the journey on? And that is really really hard to know because you'll have people tell you, well, you're being too picky and that kind of stuff. Well, sometimes you're not being too picky because you know what you want.
Right.
But the other times you got to realize I may not find Superman. So, this is good, and I'll make this a great relationship.
And you might find that Superman and Superwoman are different than what the, picture is, that it's your Superman and your Superwoman. That's a whole
That's exactly
different
what it's all
make and
about.
model. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Allison, I did quote you in the article at the very end, and that was from a few years ago when I reached out to you and in my own struggle of dating, as an adult, and you shared beautiful words with me. And I'm so touched by you two. You two give me so much hope, and what you have created together impacts the world. Your ripple effect is phenomenal, and your willingness to share in this venue is just absolutely powerful. So thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
on behalf of everyone listening and just kind of clinging to your words and, gaining some hope and some momentum for themselves and ready to just take a brave act and keep saying yes and not give up. And so I encourage everyone to jump on to thehipsenior.com, read the article that is out there for the month of February. We'll do a brand new topic in March, but for February and for every day of every year, just really, really reach into love, lean into it, and know that there are supports out there. There are people who are doing it, who are living it, and just keep your eyes and heart open. Thank you, friends.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Krista, as always.